I have not read or written an entire story in the past 5 years, besides of course my children's book Adena and her star, which came in a flash, finished within the hour, plot and setting withholding the critique of numerous editors. It is an essence of my soul truly, but apart from that story which I am currently illustrating, I have avoided words. Perhaps this is because I used to write a lot of bad poetry when I was depressed, and so by association I have avoided them all. But this year we are changing that. I am teaching myself how to write because I have stories to tell. Good morning guys, welcome back to my channel. This video is a little bit outside my comfort zone because it is completely unscripted. But I asked you guys when I was writing and illustrating my children's book Adena and her star, which is the journey I'm taking you guys along at the moment, if you also wanted to come along the journey of me teaching myself how to write. And you said yes. Well, actually only one person did, but you and me, girl, we're going on this ride together. I want to start from scratch. I want to learn how to write. And when I popped onto the internet, I went onto YouTube and I typed in how to write, the foundations of writing, how to write a novel. All the videos that came up, all the answers that I got were about how to actually finish writing your novel. But no one taught you actually how to write, how to craft sentences, and how to put words together to create feeling, to create characters, to create world building. Because I feel like I know those basics, I just don't know how to put it all together. So we're gonna start from scratch and I'm gonna build myself a curriculum to teach myself how to write. So let's dive in. So I have separated my curriculum into 3 different categories. Also, at any point or time during this video that I use the wrong terminology or you think you can add or change something I can use to benefit my curriculum, please let me know because this is all my own research. So we have 3 chapters. The first chapter is fiction essentials, and this includes the meaning, the message of our story, the storyline, the plot, the structure, the pace, the scenes, the characters, the world building. That's what I have right now off the top of my head for fiction essentials, the building blocks that make up a novel or a story. And then we also have, under that, we have literary conventions. So that kind of creates our fiction essentials. And then under our literary conventions, we have literary devices, which include like similes, metaphors, a juxtaposition, contrast, descriptive writing. So they're my 3 chapters that I'm gonna go into today. I'm gonna start with the fiction essentials. Guys, I think I'm gonna go research all the definitions, examples for every single point that I'm making in each chapter, and then I'm gonna come back and share them all with you guys. Alright guys, I've done my research and we're gonna start in chapter 1, which is all about the essential building blocks of writing. Now, if you have a writing degree, you've studied literature, this is probably gonna be so rudimentary and basic for you to hear, but this is just me going on my journey of teaching myself how to write. And I thought it would be really cool to document that journey so I can look back on it. And if anybody else out there wants to learn how to write and they have no idea where to start, this might be a great video to watch. But obviously, if you have a lot of experience, this is going to be very basic. Or maybe it gives you a great overview. Nevertheless, let's dive into chapter 1 and I'm going to share the 13 points that I made. The first fiction essential that I want to start with is of course the meaning or the message. And this is different from theme because with a meaning or message, you are giving a moral. You are giving a idea of telling the reader how to live or what they can take away from it and apply in their life. A theme is very different because it is an overarching idea or concept that leaves the reader with a question, not necessarily a message that they have to apply in their life. The second fiction essential is, of course, theme, which leads on from meaning or message. And theme is very similar to your meaning or message, but it's more giving a question to the reader, not necessarily a statement that they should live by. Theme has consistency throughout the entire novel, and there also can be many themes in a novel or just one main theme. I learned that there are different types of themes. There are thematic concepts like love and friendship, or there are thematic statements like love is blind. And you can either have overarching themes like thematic concepts, or you can dive into specific thematic statements. The third fiction essential I came across was storyline, which I think is very similar to plot. It is basically the structure of your plot line, and I think storyline can also involve so many aspects of storytelling and world building, and it really adheres to all of the literary devices that come into play when you're building your storyline, which is fiction essential number 4, which is of course plot. And I feel like plot is the most obvious literary device. It is the entire sequence of events that happen in your novel, where one event leads to the next event happening, and it is the structure of how those events happen. It is honestly the foundation of the storyline, and it's how the author constructs and creates them that makes up the plotline. Fiction essential number 5 is pace, and this is how quickly or slowly the plot events are revealed to the reader. Sometimes we need to know certain information at certain times in order to understand the sequence of events that happen in the plot, and that is all about the pacing. A well-paced novel creates a really dynamic experience, and this is so important for the reader to feel certain emotions at certain times to keep us engaged. Otherwise, we're dropping the novel. I think the number one reason that I don't finish novels is because of the pacing. The pacing is off, and I'm not emotionally engaged to the characters or the plot, or there isn't high enough stakes for me to continue reading on. So I know that pacing is a big thing that I would like to work on in my own writing. Fiction essential number 6 is plot structure, and I feel like this is something that I have to really deep dive in this chapter and go into depth about researching it, because I don't know much about how the plot is divvied up into different acts. I know there's the 7-step acts, there is the 3-act rule, and it's all about, of course, keeping the reader engaged as much as possible through that pacing and through that structure, so we have an idea about what is going to come. And if we don't deliver that structure and deliver the sequence of events in a logical way, we're not going to finish the novel. So structure is so important in order to deliver what we expect as the reader. Every single novel follows a very similar structure in a beginning, a middle, an end, rising points, highs and lows, hooks, and I think that structure is so important for the reader to know what is to come. Fiction essential number 7 is scenes, and I found this one really difficult to research. There were so many people having different opinions of what counts for a scene, and I'm going to explain 2 different answers for you guys of what I found a scene is. So a scene can follow the exact same 7 structure as a novel, like I'm going to put a picture on the board. You guys know the one, the 7, the beginning, rising, incident, climax, resolution. That one, that is sometimes counted as a scene when it has a beginning, all those points, and a resolution. Some people count that as one scene. The other definition of a scene I found was when an event occurs It's when an event occurs in the same time and place. So those are the 2 definitions of scene. Love to hear your guys' opinions, what you think is classified as a scene. Let me know. Fiction essential number 8 is one of my favorites, which is characterization. Now, I can forgo bad writing if there is chef's kiss insane characterization in a book. I eat that shit up. I love it. I want a character that has a lot of emotional depth, that has a lot of sophistication and has a lot of relatability. And I really struggle relating to characters. Just an INTJ that wants to feel. Anyway, love when a character is really thought out. And when I'm reading a book and I come across a character that I'm like, would they actually say that? I just feel the story and the storyline and the plot and the world building just fall apart, because the characterization is such a foundation to a great novel, a great fictional novel. So how do you build a great character? I think it's about feeding little pieces of information about that character through plot, through action, through storytelling, and that makes the character so more well-rounded, rather than forcing the reader aspects about the character. But let's go a little bit deeper into characterization. Specific personality, background, history, trauma, speech patterns, personality, all these things make up a character. And when you incorporate all those different things into a character through the other literary devices and fictional essentials, then you build a very well-rounded character. And I love that. So I know that characterization is a huge chapter that I want to focus on when researching, because I'm so passionate about it. Now, my absolute favorite fiction essential, which is number 9, is world building. I love world building. I think I could just create worlds for fun. If you are following the journey of me writing and illustrating my book Adena and Her Star, you know that I just love world building, and I love including aspects to a world that add to the plot or the characters' motives, or just add a little bit of depth, a little bit of sophistication to where we are going with the story. And it doesn't necessarily have to be big and social, political, cultural aspects, because I'm obviously illustrating a children's book or a picture book, but I just love a little bit of depth because it makes things more relatable. And I don't know, I just want to absorb myself into that world, and I can feel so much more when there are elements of world building that construct a new reality. And I think world building is all about the geography, the history, the socio-political, cultural aspects of that world. What am I missing? I'm gonna put a list here, but world building just makes things more real, and the reader can understand aspects of the plotline better, the events, the characters' motives. It just makes things more real. The fiction essential number 10 is point of view. Now, writers will specifically choose a point of view based on what they need to reveal in the storyline. Like, they will specifically choose a first or usually third person. Rarely is it ever chosen to be told in second person. First or third person, depending on how they are crafting their story. A different experience for the reader, and depending on what their meaning or message is, or their theme, or what information they need to reveal at certain times, or how badly they need the reader to connect with the characters, writers will choose a different point of view. Fiction essential number 10 is dialogue. Why did I have an American accent then? To characterization, telling different characters apart, revealing inner conflicts of the character, how they respond to specific events. I think especially if you're not going in first or third person, or you only have really one character, dialogue can reveal so much about your sub-characters or your side characters. It really builds to their characterization. If you can create really genuine and authentic dialogue in your plot, in your storyline, that can really add to the realness of the story. And I think getting a reader to be in the world of your story and therefore clearly understand your message and meaning and relate to the characters more emotionally is the ultimate goal, more so than not. So if you can create authentic dialogue, you can bring your reader further into your story. Essential number 12 is style and tone. And I think this is a chapter that I'm not too well versed on. I don't really understand style and tone in a way that I can explain it with passion, because it is kind of like the attitude your character takes to specific events, and it is necessary to reveal characterization and world building, plot. And style for me is like, what is your writing style? Everybody has an art style, and I think everybody has a writing style. My writing style is very almost descriptive, world building, characterization are my two focus points that I love to do, and so that filters through the literary devices that I use as well. But very last is a fiction essential, which is, this is more of a literary device. I don't know where to place it in my 3 chapters, so we're placing it here, which is show, don't tell. And I think this is a very important thing, because when I read books and they just tell me everything, I'm like, get me out. I am so fast to drop those books. That is like the number one, like, out, bye, see ya. Show, don't tell is providing the reader with an experience. It's not telling them everything. It's, Vincent was angry. Don't tell me Vincent was angry. That doesn't really give me any context to why he's angry, or his personality, or the event happening. Show me that Vincent is angry through his words, through his action, through the storytelling, and that makes the reader relate to Vincent in a much more profound way. That's an example of show, don't tell. Anyway, let's move on to literary conventions. Literary conventions are features that allow us to define a genre, whether it's a romance, a fantasy, a horror. Oh my god, we did like such an extensive work into genres in university, which is why I'm not necessarily diving deep into different types of genres and how to define them, because I've already learned that. So that's something that you want to go into and you want to research, then I suggest you make it part of your curriculum. But for me, I don't want to write on every single genre, so I'm specifically going into the genres that I want to write in and that my trilogy is set in. Literary conventions can be tropes, arcs, cliches that allow us to define a genre. When I was studying at university, they were saying how important genres are, so that the reader has expectations of what they're reading. I remember how they really stressed how important it was for us to stick to a genre. And I remember the difference between like a romance and a love story. Romance has that happy ending, and that's why it's a romance, while a love story can have romantic feelings, but it doesn't necessarily have that happy ending. So there are those are two certain cliches of a specific genre, and that allows readers to know what they're going to read and what they're going to expect. Anyway, the 3 literary conventions that I decided to dive deeper in my curriculum when I study how to write is, of course, tropes, arcs, and cliches. How to avoid them and how to use them. So those are the 3 ones that I'll go into detail with. I think this is the most exciting part of writing. It's when to use certain literary devices to have a certain effect in your writing. Literary devices allow the writing to be taken beyond its literal meaning. For example, foreshadowing or symbolism or metaphors. So I'm gonna give you guys a list of all the literary devices that I really want to go into, and really research why we use those literary devices, how to use those literary devices, and the feeling and meaning that those literary devices have in the work of fiction. Some of the favorites are like your symbolism, your similes, your metaphors, your juxtaposition, your contrast, your figurative language, alliteration, onomatopoeia, flashbacks, irony, etc. Those are very middle school, high school grade figurative language, and obviously the more we go into research and the more I understand writing, the more complex. Those are the 3 chapters that I want to go into depth on each point in each chapter and really research and understand how to write and how to use those fiction essentials and those literary devices and literary conventions, especially in the genre that I want to write in. But before we go, I have a few last words to say. Firstly, I really want to set myself up with a writing schedule. I really want to write, like properly actually write stories and short stories. Every Monday, that's kind of like my off day where I edit my YouTube videos. So dedicate a few hours to writing that day. I also journal. I want to journal every single morning or every single night. And I also have a few resources that I want to use and I want to share with you guys. I love this girl's channel. I love Abby Emmons' YouTube channel. I think she has a chapter on every single one of those points that I made in my chapters, or she really goes into depth about writing, and I've watched quite a few of her videos already. The other resource that I'm going to use is called AWC, which is Australian Writers Centre, and they have lots and lots of short courses on writing essentials and how to write your novel, and so many different little short courses that are only a few $100s that I think are going to be very, very, very good to study. And obviously you're not going to be paying thousands per course like a university degree. You're only paying a couple $100s. And I think if it's something that you want to write a novel for yourself, or you want to write a novel to be published, then you don't necessarily need to be hired. So why would you need a degree? Swimming. I'm sure that wherever you are in the world, whatever country you live in, I'm sure they have something very, very similar. This one's just super easy for me to access and pay for and choose and learn at my own pace. And if you want to follow along my own journey of writing and illustrating my children's book, I suggest you do that, because I share every aspect of that journey. The writing, I'm going to take you guys how I'm setting out how I'm photographing my art, how I'm setting out my children's book, how I'm designing the covers, how I'm designing the book, where I'm printing the book, how much it costs to print the book, getting it back into Australia, shipping out those books, my entire marketing strategy for my children's book as well. So if you are interested in self-publishing your own book, then subscribe. But I think this is a great video for myself to reflect back on. Anyway, love you, and I'll see you in page 8 of my children's book. Bye.